In 1993, a cedar plank was pulled from the mud of a Neolithic lakeside settlement in Greece. 100 symbols were carved in 10 deliberate rows, and radiocarbon dating places the wood at roughly 5,300 BC, 2,000 years before the earliest cuneiform. What could be the oldest writing ever found? Here's what gets me. Over 30 years later, no one has published a full study of those symbols. The reasons go deeper than you would expect. When the excavator's trowel first scraped against waterlogged wood in the mud of Lake Orestiada, no one on the team expected anything more than another Neolithic stake or fragment. But as the silt fell away, a single cedar plank emerged, about 19 centimeters long and 6 centimeters wide, the size of a small paperback, yet impossibly old and dark from centuries underwater. Professor George Archaeology, who was leading the dig, recorded in his field diary that the object had floated free, not pried, not dug, but gently lifted by the water itself, almost as if it wanted to be found. The plank's surface was scored with rows of shallow geometric marks, nearly 100 symbols cut with a flint blade into 10 precise lines. The patterns were not random scratches or the byproduct of decay. Each incision showed a regularity, a spacing that made the marks look almost like a code. Even through the mud, the marks caught the eye. Anyone standing there would have felt the weight of that moment. This was not just another artifact. This was something deliberate and fragile, soaked through, its fibers swollen, its survival owed entirely to the oxygen-starved mud that had hidden it for millennia. Archaeology and his team did not dare let the tablet dry out. They kept it submerged, transferring it straight from the lake mud into a tank of water. The field notes mention cedar, which is rare for Neolithic Greece, and the unmistakable V-shaped tool marks left by a sharp flint. There is a quiet drama in those details. A piece of wood, carved by hand before the pyramids or Stonehenge, rising up from the lake bed, with nearly 100 silent symbols waiting for someone to read them. Radiocarbon dating on the Despelio tablet did not rest on one lab or a single test. 4 independent accelerator mass spectrometry labs, Groningen, Weizmann, Oxford, and the Centre de Recherche en Archéométrie, each took a sample, ran their own protocols, and landed on nearly identical results. The wood, sampled from the heart of the tablet, consistently calibrated to a window between 5,324 BC and 5,079 BC. That is not a broad guess. It is a 245-year slice of prehistory pinned down by the latest IntCal 20 calibration curve. The Groningen measurement, 6,270 plus or minus 38 years before present, is the one you will see most often quoted, but every single lab's data points to the same era. In my opinion, that kind of scientific convergence is rare, especially for something this old and this fragile. But the real kicker came in 2024, when a dendrochronology team published a new study using the so-called Miyake event, a global cosmic ray spike from 5,259 BC that leaves a sharp radiocarbon fingerprint in tree rings. They took an oak log from the same muddy layer as the tablet, measured 31 rings, and matched the spike with a near-perfect correlation. The outermost ring dated to 5,328 BC, the innermost to 5,140 BC. That is year-level precision, not just a radiocarbon estimate. Overlay the two methods, and you get a chronologically locked window. The tablet was carved, used, and buried sometime between 5,324 BC and 5,140 BC. What blows my mind is how tight this overlap is, about 180 years, with almost no wiggle room. And here's what really gets me. This is nearly 2,000 years older than the first proto-cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia. By any reasonable standard, the scientific case for the tablet's age is rock solid. So why, after all this, has there never been a full publication of the symbols themselves? The evidence is there. The question is not about when the tablet was made. It is about why the world still has not seen what is actually on it. Scroll through any article or social media post about the Despelio tablet, and you will almost always see the same image. A neat wooden slab, crisp symbols, clean edges, sometimes even a little museum label peeking into the frame. But here is where things go off the rails. Almost all of those photos are actually of a replica, not the real artifact. In 2002, the museum in Despilio commissioned a cedar copy for their reconstructed Neolithic hut. It was made from fresh wood, carved with a modern flint blade, and meant to give visitors a sense of the original, while the real tablet stayed locked away in climate-controlled storage. For years, that replica's photo has been passed around as the genuine article. Travel blogs, news outlets, even some academic presentations have used it, sometimes without realizing the misidentification. In 2024, Michael Bott and Rupert Soskin took a hard look at the available images and ran a forensic comparison. They noticed the wood grain in the public photos is too uniform. No ancient cracks, no water stains, no patina from 5,000 years in the mud. The tool marks are another giveaway. The replica's incisions are sharp and shallow, made by a modern hand, while the original's marks, documented in field sketches and the single authentic photo, are deeper, more irregular, and worn by centuries underwater. But the clincher is the scale. In the only peer-reviewed image, Figure 6 from the Faccarellis and others' 2014 study, you get a proper scale bar and the actual dimensions. In the replica photos, the ruler's markings do not line up. It is a different calibration, subtly off. Bott and Soskin even did an overlay showing the mismatch down to the millimeter. In my view, this is not just a case of mistaken identity, it is a perfect example of how misinformation can spread when real data is locked away. This confusion is not just trivia, it clouds the entire debate about what the tablet really is and why almost nobody has seen it up close. The Despilio tablet has spent more than 30 years in a kind of bureaucratic limbo. After its recovery in 1993, the artifact was logged under accession number DEM321, sealed in a humidity-controlled box and placed in conservation box C03 at the Archaeological Museum of Kastoria. The conservation team, led by Stavros Maniatis and assisted by Irene Papadopoulou, treated the waterlogged wood with polyethylene glycol to keep it from cracking as it dried. Every step was logged, every movement tracked, and each request for access had to pass through layers of institutional oversight. Here is where the story gets tangled. Despite the successful stabilization, the tablet has never left storage except for brief scientific imaging. Micro-CT scans were completed in 2002. An XRF analysis in 2005 confirmed the cedar's chemical integrity. The datasets, Project Code DT2002 CT, are locked in the university's imaging archive, but requests for new high-resolution imaging have been routinely denied by the Ministry of Culture's Directorate of Antiquities. The justification is that the wood is too fragile, the risks too high, and the conservation plan not yet finalized. In my opinion, this is where science gets strangled by paperwork. Meanwhile, the editorial trail is just as frustrating. The journal Anaskama received a draft manuscript in 2009, with a reviewer in 2011 calling for a complete epigraphic transcription. The manuscript was resubmitted in 2012, but it never saw print, supposedly due to the lack of a full symbol record and ongoing concerns about the tablet's stability. Then, in 2013, Professor Hormuziadis died, and with him the momentum stalled. Since then, the unpublished imaging data, partial field notes, and provisional transcriptions have remained scattered across university archives and museum files, out of reach for anyone hoping to study the symbols in detail. What blows my mind is that, even after decades, the only published image is a single peer-reviewed photograph from 2014. Everything else, including the CT scans, the XRF spectra, and even the conservation photos, remains behind closed doors. This is not a story of lost knowledge. It is a story of knowledge boxed up, locked down, and left to gather dust, while the world debates what might be written on the oldest inscribed wood ever found. Across the Balkans, the Despilio tablet is not a lone outlier. It is one piece in a sprawling network of Neolithic sites where people carved, stamped, or painted thousands of geometric signs long before cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs. In my opinion, the scale is staggering. Marco Merlini's DAT-DOS database catalogs over 5,400 sign occurrences on nearly 1,000 artifacts, stretching from Serbia's Vinca Belobrdo to Tartaria in Romania, Gradašnica and Karanovo in Bulgaria, and beyond. These are not just random doodles. Many of the same shapes turn up over and over on pottery, figurines, bone tools, even stone. Some sites, like Vinca Belobrdo, have whole layers packed with repeated motifs. Tartaria is famous for its trio of inscribed clay tablets, while Gradašnica and Karanovo yield their own clusters of signs, often grouped in rows or bands. The sheer geographic reach and volume suggest a shared visual language running through Neolithic southeastern Europe, with Despelio sitting right in the middle of that ancient conversation. Michael Mader's breakdown of the Vinca sign record is probably the most systematic attempt to sort signal from noise. He tallied every known example and found that 59% are pottery marks, like ownership tags or production codes. Another 11.5% fall into the ornamental category, and the remaining 29.5% appear as what he calls symbolic notation. That is the cluster where Despelio fits, repeated, organized, but not quite language. The real problem is access. If the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were locked away for decades, could eventually be digitized, imaged in multispectral light, and published online for anyone to study, there is no excuse for keeping a handful of wooden incisions under wraps. In my opinion, it is time for a remedy. High-resolution imaging, open data, and a full transcription. Let the evidence speak. Anything less just keeps the debate stuck in the mud. Right now, one of the world's oldest symbol tablets sits unpublished, its meaning locked away not by mystery, but by academic inertia. In my opinion, that's the real scandal. Until open science prevails, history's biggest questions can stall on a single dusty shelf. What would you do differently?